Hello and welcome to the How to Trade Like a Pro podcast. I'm Wieland Arlt, and in this episode I welcome Piers Crosby, the CEO of TradingView. With Piers, I'm talking about his life, his career, about TradingView, and of course about business and what you can learn from all of this. Before we start, please take a closer look to the risk disclaimer in the show notes, and now enjoy the podcast. I'm very happy to welcome Piers Crosby from TradingView. Piers, we are discussing already for quite a while about how to meet, when to make this possible, because it's not that easy. As CEO of TradingView, you're a very busy person, and you're sitting right now in the US, and I'm in Asia and Bangkok, so it's literally 12 hours. It's evening at your place and very early in the morning at my place. So I'm very, very happy that you made it possible that we can discuss about life, career, TradingView, business, and whatever comes to mind. So very happy to have you here. Welcome, Piers.
Thank you so much, Wieland. And obviously, I'm glad that we could both make time. I know it's been a bit difficult to find schedules these days, but it is always the case with our global ambitions. We like to connect with people globally, and so good to hear you're on the road again. And obviously, I hope myself to join at some juncture. But in the interim, yes, we have a campus here in New York. Our global headquarters, managed by our global CEO, Dennis, is in London, and so we split time kind of between two continents. Thus, we can kind of elongate a lot of our day and in key projects. Good to join you from New York.
Right. Speaking of, I mean, we already discussed that you are also traveling quite a bit. I mean, not like the whole year, but quite a stretch of time you're not in the office, if you're in an office at all. So where are you right now? Except you.
Yeah, no. We have an office here. It's a suite right off Madison Square Park, so very centrally located, which is super convenient when it comes to meeting with brokerages, banks, a lot of the hedge funds and asset managers who use TradingView every day. So usually you can find me here in the office. But when not in the office, as you mentioned, I am a big fan of the road. I generally travel around not just the country, but try to go a kind of intra-country for the purposes of kind of better understanding what's happening in many regional markets, and ultimately a lot of the differences between, say, both economic and political kind of levers that obviously change those markets a lot. And so I'd say on average I'm probably on the road 4 to 5 months of the year. But in general, for the most part, I try to stay as much synced with my time zone as possible. So that means a lot of trips to Latin America, a lot of trips to South America as well. I tried to go kind of outside my shell as well. I mean, last spring we actually had the pleasure of going to India for almost 2 months, just to work with some of our team out there and kind of expand the operation in India. But yeah, I mean, clearly we do have roots kind of all over the world, and so it's awesome because I can fly in kind of any country, and lo and behold, there's a TradingView office, or even if not an office, there's somebody that I can still break bread with and ultimately share a meal and discuss all things TradingView.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds exciting, and it definitely is. So it's not about today where we really want to talk about new business models in terms of, we have all this new working environment and everybody works everywhere, but still kind of it is, because if you go to traditional companies, they are like, this is a working space. You have to be there 9 to 5, but don't dare to show up at 9, come earlier, things like this. And things changed. They didn't just change for you being CEO. It also changed for employees, if you're an employee at all, if you're not just freelancing and having a little bit more responsibility, and also having the possibility to schedule everything on your own and work the way you want, where you want. And this is huge, I think. So how is it organized with TradingView?
Well, structurally, yeah, I think that we were always kind of set up to inherit some of the benefits, if you will, of remote work, where maybe more traditional finance companies had a more aggressive policy around things like um, remote work or remote kind of location policies for
Right.
security purposes, of course.
Yes.
But even before I joined, actually. The CEO and CTO of TradingView, they were previously from Eastern Europe and actually traveling a lot around kind of Europe in general, and as a result, they've always had to be connected kind of wherever they are.
Hmm.
What that has kind of precipitated, if you will, is a very, very substantial difference in kind of opinion as to in office versus out of office work, and kind of what is sustainable over time, because they've been doing this for, I'd say probably 30 odd years now.
Hmm.
Since I think straight out of high school, they started as kind of engineer contractors, product managers, and have been working with kind of global companies ever since. And so, no, as a result, the ethos of TradingView is very much distributed work. We do have some central functions and central technology. So a lot of our core operations is managed on Jira, and then a lot of our day-to-day communications is managed via various chat applications, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But as a result, we're pretty interconnected intraday. Even if I'm not, looking at you, directly across the office floor, I can definitely, quickly ping, say, some of our team in LATAM, or say some of our team in London, and catch them kind of the tail end of their day, in
Hmm.
some cases morning if I'm up early enough. But yeah, it really is kind of a global office, if you will. Thus,
Yeah.
the idea of kind of a physical office becomes less and less important as long as people are plugged in and connected accordingly. So yeah, it remains a pretty interesting setup. And when COVID happened, it was quite interesting because we've always been kind of developed like this. And so COVID kind of occurred, and we really didn't have any difference in day-to-day operations.
Right.
A lot of people, I think, had to maybe bring some of their workstations home. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, that was pretty much it. We had no security issues or data issues or privacy issues, because we've already had that infrastructure kind of under us from day one, which has been
Right.
yeah, insanely helpful, differentiating factor, I think, which obviously allowed us to focus on the business during that period versus kind of focus on the operational side of the company during that time.
True. I mean, I remember back then, I was also working as a consultant, management. I did management trainings and consultancy. So when this happened and everybody went into lockdown, it was a huge issue because most companies weren't prepared for this. Some got, they just got broke because of that, because they didn't manage to do anything about this. And some were just like you didn't feel anything about it at all because everything was already in place and happening. So this is a huge benefit, on one hand, and second, it's like, yeah, it's some kind of filter for the good and the bad, like this is what disruption does. Now it was like disruption from some, unknown factors. But anyway, on a personal side, I would also like to know how you managed yourself, because being president of IFTA, it's more or less the same for me. People can approach me like 24/7 because we have member societies all over the world, and whenever somebody wants to reach out to me, I really have to take care that I turn off my phone, mute everything. Otherwise, I will not come to any rest. How is it about you? How do you deal with it?
Well, I mean, I think yeah, you definitely have to be very, very vigilant with schedules, and ultimately you got to put a little more emphasis into 15-minute increments of your
Hmm.
day.
Right.
And that's because there is always someone who wants to book you for something.
Yeah.
And if you ever intend to actually have a breakfast, or maybe even a dinner, it's always good to block out time for yourself. So I'm very religious on having a very extreme policy around calendaring. But what that allows me to do is basically you have a very, very normal schedule according to most people, I think. But that's kind of with time comes perfection, right? So I think when I first joined TradingView and during the pandemic as well, shortly thereafter, there were definitely periods where, work was essentially infinite, right? TradingView is not tethered to the real world at all anyways. It's all, digital by its nature. So, there were definitely periods of time where, we were trapped in our house and kind of, you get bored of reading another book or bored of watching more TV. So it's like, wow, let's just get back to work. So, but I think that you can kind of figure out what, if you're very thoughtful about, your mental health and ultimately your personal time, you can definitely find ways to make a balancing act. For me, it's just become scheduling because without a calendar, people tend to just take advantage. If you have time, they'll take it. And while I do love that both internally and externally, it is definitely a double-edged sword. So got to make sure that you can kind of maintain both health and personal time to stay in shape, go out with friends and all that. So but yeah, I definitely do not want to disclose how the calendar works, because it is bizarre. It's absolutely out there. There's at any given time, I think throughout the day, I have something close to 25 or so things booked, and then I personally probably book another 5 or 6 for personal time. And so it's an absolute kind of a hurricane of sorts in there. But as a result, it works so far. So I'll keep doing it as long as it doesn't break yet, I guess. But in terms of other key operational things, one thing is to giving key teammates access to core conversations from a corporate level, as well as from partnerships and strategy level. I've come to learn that my inbox is also a great place for people to air out their concerns, as well as general kind of catch-ups and things like this with people from all over the world that ultimately I don't have a ton of capacity to manage alongside day-to-day operational tasks. And so a lot of kind of catch-ups and stuff like that have been I always just CC teammates that I know can spearhead the conversations themselves, or as soon as it comes in the door, if you will, I try to make sure it goes back out the door, such that somebody can kind of manage that conversation going forward. And that's crucial, because there can be a 20-car pileup of projects that nobody really can actually execute against except myself, and then I become kind of a bottleneck in this case. So I'm very, very good at reallocating when possible. At least there's obviously some things that can only be done by me, but for the most part, I found some really good teammates that can kind of manage some of the day to day. And I do say one key thing of the remote life is sitting here in the office. There's a ton of benefit in having a very tight knit team that you can quickly kind of delegate or chat with in real time. That is something that is hard to replace 100%. Whereas something like a Slack or WhatsApp or Skype, I mean, these are all great tools in terms of routine check-ins and the like. But there is some intangibility to something comes in the door, we evaluate it in real time, come up with a solution together, and then actually go on about our ways. That is that's really hard to replace, I will say. We're getting there, but it's but definitely I think that there's some great kind of intangibles to the in-office environment still.
True. Yeah, I mean, it's not about leadership in general I want to go with, but still I want to sum some things up which come to mind and maybe help one or the other guy just to manage himself too, or herself, whatever. So thing is, which very, very, very important, being a company which is worldwide and by definition also remote, I feel like it's a huge well, it's a huge benefit because you cannot micromanage at all, because you're not around. You cannot just jump over to your employee and watch what he's doing. You just have to wait what happens after it's done, right? So that's how I feel about it, and it's a huge opportunity to let things go, and also show a little bit more trust, because you have to have this by definition as well. So I think this kind of organization, being remote, being worldwide, letting people work on their own is a major fact for a successful business and company right now, compared to back in back let's say pre-pandemic.
The before times. Yep. No, I mean, in terms of from a hiring capacity as well, I mean, keep in mind, we were just chatting a little bit about kind of the global team that is TradingView. Yeah, I mean, we have folks in more than 25 countries, right? And I mean, some of them have small offices, but safe to say, I mean, most do not, and they essentially, kind of either work from, like a hot desk or kind of a small suite or something like this. But for all intents and purposes, we consider them 100% remote. And I mean, these people would not have the opportunity to work with TradingView if we were centralized in a way that, tied us to London or New York. I mean, safe to say, I have absolute rock stars, based out of Asia or LATAM or even Europe that honestly absolutely crush on their home turf, if you will, right? I mean, if I go to France, if you're in Paris, I mean, people are very proud of being Parisian, and they're not going to move. And so I'd rather hire them on their home soil than locate them out to London, where they're just going to be bitter and cold and tired. And so it's a great asset, because I mean, London and New York are not easy cities, that's for sure, and they're also extremely expensive. So no, we're very, very kind of happy to have such a kind of diverse team, both from demographic standpoint, but also from a geographic standpoint.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. Piers, let's go a little bit more into your personal career path, because you're just not, the TradingView is not your first fintech startup, so to say. You also been working for StockTwits. So how was that, and what is, let's say, the growing difference, which means like reach out to the people, how things develop? So how was it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're very different growth trajectories of both StockTwits and TradingView. I think one thing that sticks out to me in terms of my time at StockTwits versus my time at TradingView is that when I started StockTwits, Howard Lindzen, the founder, basically reached out to me via Twitter. And at the time, I was actually working inside of Thomson Reuters, which is an enormous machine of a company, getting pretty burnt out on corporate life. And he basically showed me the alternative, which was to basically be the first employee for StockTwits New York. So essentially, it was Howard and his co-founder and a lead engineer based out of San Diego, and then myself in New York trying to run the commercial side of the business.
Right.
I had no real rationale for doing this, other than I was simply bored, and I thought this was an awesome way to kind of run my own shop. And safe to say, I did 5 years there. I learned pretty much everything there is to know about business from that experience. And from that, I think I had a pretty clear understanding of what works, what doesn't work, models to consider and not to consider. And I stepped away, and then TradingView found me, actually, and I was fully remote at the time, actually surfing in Mexico. TradingView asked if I wanted to join, and initially I was a bit skeptical, because I thought about going back to California. A lot of thoughts about do I want to stay in fintech? Is this really for me? But safe to say, they were convincing enough and very accommodative of the idea of kind of this kind of hybrid schedule, having a strong team in New York and things like this. And it's interesting, because when I started here, it was actually very similar structure to when I joined at StockTwits. Safe to say there was none. Very, very flat organization. And we still are, to our credit. I think that a lot of the benefits of TradingView is that it is extremely flat and very, very democratic. So there's not a ton of bureaucracy. Essentially, if you have great ideas, you can really make a difference. And that's an incredible asset for both companies for sure. But I think in terms of the biggest takeaway for me was I was coming with a very, very full playbook, which was here's what worked at StockTwits, here's what didn't work.
Right.
And TradingView basically gave me an outlet to really execute against that. And since I've been here, we've grown from about 70 people to close to 700, which is a pretty incredible journey. When I was at StockTwits, I was like the third or fourth employee. And then we grew that to about 50. So it was actually a perfect leapfrog moment, if you will, just inside of a different company. But yeah, the reason I think TradingView really hit what you consider to be exit velocity or the hockey stick growth curve versus say a StockTwits is TradingView is a utility. It's very much an essential tool or feature that kind of underlies the foundations of the service or the foundations of the industry rather. Whereas StockTwits was always a nice to have, meaning it's always great to have other traders that you can connect with and you can chat with in real time. But the difference between utility versus nice to have is enormous. And thus you could see that adoption curve becoming very, very differentiated, right? It's kind of like, people need to have an email service provider or a CRM service. It's like it's a must-have. You have to have it in order to be successful at what you're doing, and whether it's e-commerce or solution sales or anything like that. And the same goes for trading and investing. You really have to have a foundational product where you can get all your information, your data, back testing, screener tools, etc. And to have that all at one place is pretty underrated, actually. I didn't realize at the time when I joined, but most kind of comprehensive solutions usually cost somewhere in the range of $500 to $10,000, just depending on how advanced you want to get.
Exactly.
Whereas TradingView, has always been literally since we started $14 a month, which is I think probably a factor of 10 in terms of the lowest cost player in the space. So so it turns out, really, really well-priced product plus utility functions. That's like the key factor to really make that kind of escape velocity occur. And then we just needed kind of the right catalyst. The pandemic, honestly, was an insane catalyst because people were stuck at home and they basically, again, as we just discussed, they were tired of reading books and looking at TV screens. So they're like, well, hey, maybe I'll actually get into investing. And we saw a lot of that growth as a result of people kind of finding investing and finding apps like Robinhood and these kind of newer startups. And we were a great place for people to do that investment analysis. And the same occurs for crypto as well, right? Crypto basically was born in some parts on TradingView. I mean, we were the first ones to pull crypto data feeds from Mt. Gox back in the day before Mt. Gox went bankrupt due to some of the hacks that occurred in the early days of crypto. But we were pulling in data feeds to TradingView back in 2013, which is, I think, when Bitcoin was like 40 cents or something like this, or maybe $4, I think. But so crypto's boom has been very much correlated with TradingView's boom as well, and those are also intertwined. So, but these catalysts are impossible to predict. You just have to be at the right place at the right time. So, I think TradingView was always set up for the opportunity to inherit such catalysts, but honestly, who had any idea that it would kind of take off in the way it did? But that's kind of the summary of the difference between the two, right? StockTwits versus TradingView.
Right. I mean, the journey you described was like incredible, because before TradingView, And also right now we have local, which means local on your computer, and local, which means regional local. Some offerings, you have like the download software, all the classic stuff. And you have, of course, some here, I know in Germany there have been two, now it's just one left. And they're doing a really good job, but somehow something is missing, even though they might have the community part as well. They're not so successful, not even close to what TradingView managed to reach and to achieve. And also what comes to mind when you say, yeah, we were more or less the first ones showing Bitcoin data, showing Bitcoin charts. We were together with Robinhood and all this, all these fintechs, all the new technology coming into the markets, and what people are looking for, and what really is, let's say, sexy in a certain way. I feel like it's you being a startup, fintech, being modern, being all this, let's say, millennial young guys stuff, which all comes together. It's like like a group finding each other, and just by doing this, it's like you leave everyone behind being, let's say, some boomer, things like that. I can say that because I am a boomer, right? So I'm fair to say. But
no.
kind of like
we didn't rise by ourselves, that's for sure. Yeah, we definitely rose in good company, I would say, with a bunch of these new age fintechs and other brands.
So it's like you as not being part of this, there's no chance. Done. You can go. It feels kind of like this. So
yeah, it's the new wave. I mean, I'm very happy that we're kind of ready for it, because a lot of brands kind of missed it. That's definitely true. So it's been interesting, no doubt.
Yeah, so it gives some ideas of how to pick the right people for your company, and it gives you a vision, and it also explains a lot why just a group of people just stick amongst themselves for that reason.
Yeah, true.
It's pretty obvious. And let's continue with TradingView, because it's very interesting also, not just to see how structure is and how you manage yourself and how your career path has been so far. It's also very interesting to see more about the growth, and speaking a little bit more about IFTA. For me, it's very, very interesting also to see how different regions of the world develop, and how trading is perceived, and investing and technical analysis in different parts of the world. So what is your experience with TradingView? Where are the markets who are most interesting right now in terms of growth, or also community-wise? And which are markets where you feel like it's a little bit disappointing?
Yeah, well, we have plenty of disappointments, that's for sure, but we're always aspirational for all countries, I think, in terms of when they discover investing in a more meaningful way, and if they discover investing, maybe they actually move into full-scale trading, right? And that's kind of the journey that we see a lot of people kind of encountering in emerging markets and in new countries that maybe even 10 years ago, or heck, even 5 years ago, it wasn't even really possible. Safe to say, as a result of the other fintech players in the space that have made these investing opportunities actually a potential reality for folks who previously wouldn't have had that opportunity. So no, I mean, I would say geographically, I am probably the most impressed with India, for sure. I think it's it's by far our largest country from a traffic perspective on a monthly basis, and even 2 years ago, it didn't register as a top 10 country for us. So all of a sudden, it's blown by all other countries that were kind of in the running, and as a result, we're very, very excited to see what India has in store for it. I think this is a similar story we see with many emerging markets, as well as I wouldn't call them emerging markets, but rather tier 2 financial markets, right? So maybe you have like the majors, which is, say, London, Hong Kong, New York, Singapore, Frankfurt, and maybe Amsterdam. or maybe like a
Right.
couple others. But there's a
Yeah.
lot of other financial markets, say in Rio or other kind of major markets that have really been I guess taking hold, and I think it's become more accessible for a lot of investors for many reasons, but most notably, I would say that the actual amount of information that exists now on these companies
Hmm.
has changed substantially in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And we in the U.S. have, say, the SEC, and we have Edgar, and we have the ability for people to actually file, 10Ks and 10Qs, or 8Ks and 10Qs, which are public disclosures around how much money does this company make, what's its earnings per share, what's its revenue per employee count, things like this. And even a few years ago, that data in many of these countries was really hard to get your hands on. Or
Hmm.
you had to go down to, say, a local stockbroker who would print you out a tear sheet to tell you whether or not this was a good or bad company to invest in.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's pretty insane, but that's really the way most of the world worked not even that long ago.
Yeah.
So as a result, you see a ton of interest, I think, due to the transparency that you see in these markets, right? Where previously it wasn't even something that they would consider looking at because, well, it's safe to say they had no idea if there was any real evidence that this company was legit or not.
Hmm.
And maybe it was, but that would be kind of hearsay, right? There's no kind of public filings to back it up or have any
Right.
credibility. So many countries like India have done a lot with their financial regulators to actually pare down kind of the fraudsters or the companies that are just kind of non-credible.
Hmm.
And as a result, you see kind of a really new kind of investor class kind of emerging as a result. And you see that, I think, in a lot of countries, not just India, but that's due to the fact that markets are developing from a technology standpoint, and technology really is a proliferation of information.
Hmm.
And the more information that's out there, the more people have kind of time and willingness to look into these companies. And then if they really do believe that it's something, that could have significant ways to go, they realize,
Yeah.
well, I actually have now the tools at my disposal to actually place a trade or make an investment,
Yeah.
which, again, I really look to Zerodha as an example in India, which is a pretty unknown broker for maybe most of your audience, I'd say. Around the
Hmm.
world, it's really not it's not a known brand, but
True.
in India, it's gone from being an absolute nothing of a company to becoming, if not the top, I'd say one of the top brokers in all of India. And this is because prior to Zerodha, um, Indian brokering was still done on a telephone where they would essentially call you up or you would call them and place a trade, or they give you what's on the list for today, and if you don't want like what they have, then no interest. They hang up and dial somebody else.
Yeah.
And so Zerodha was kind of the Robin Hood moment for India, and as a result, it's a huge company today. And yeah, I've had the pleasure to meet with Nitin a couple times, who's the founder of Zerodha, and again, right place, right time. He didn't really think that he was doing something that legendary, but really what he did is provide a ton of transparency to everyday investors, and yeah, as a result, it's a enormous company. So yeah, TradingView benefits from all these new players coming online because where we specialize is more in kind of the analytics of companies and kind of how to look at companies from a technical sense versus a fundamental sense, and then how do they compare versus another basket of companies. All these
Hmm.
type of kind of analyses. But if we didn't have partners like Zerodha in the space, I don't think we would have done nearly as well, because at the end of the day, people don't like to just research for research sake. They actually want to put money behind their ideas. And
Hmm.
so companies like that have been hugely substantial to our growth in some of these markets. And same goes the reverse, right? Like in a lot of Eastern Europe, there's really not a ton of, say, broker innovation,
Hmm.
because safe to say that's a case of a lot of regulation in a very
Yeah.
fractured region. and a lot of incumbents that don't really want new players to come into the market. And as a result, you see a very, very slow amount of growth comparatively in TradingView, simply because of that. So yeah, that's a good example, I'd say, of kind of our various growth trajectories. But yeah, it's definitely interesting because I had no idea how correlated we were with a maturing market. But it turns out that it goes hand in hand in every region.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned is not just, you have this community factor with TradingView. You also have, I mean, basically it was like technical analysis, and then, somehow community came into place, and then it felt like let's put some brokers into it as well, so they can really follow up with their trading idea, not just doing it by themselves and shut up, but also share it and just open the trade with a click. And this is something which is, I mean, disrupting the industry from my point of view, right? Because you have everything in hand, and to make it even better, you also can do everything mobile, done, So
Totally.
it's perfect. Yeah. So it's really, really amazing. So what is the next step for TradingView? What is in the pipeline? What can people look for?
Well, there's plenty in the pipeline, safe to say. We are very excited to be, collaborating more with international organizations like yourself. Right. Besides that, I'd say, yeah, we continue to look globally and kind of really mature in various markets where we barely have a foothold, more or less a toehold or a tiny thread that holds various countries together. But so we're definitely maturing the business internationally in various markets, and you'll see that by way of more community-based meetups, more local events in various markets. But on top of that, I'd say the technology itself continues to prosper in many ways. Most notably, I would say the diversity of data that we offer on TradingView. I can safely disclose that we are working very diligently on options, which is a very maybe mundane asset class for some, but for others it is kind of hand in glove. It's essential for trading strategies and hedging strategies. And so previously, TradingView has about 1.6 million instruments across our platform. So economic data, FX data, crypto data, equity data, you name it, we have it. About 1.6 million different instruments you can look at. Now, when we add options, it'll actually double that footprint, which just goes to show how massive the amount of data that we're trying to capture is, and then pass that on to the end customer. So it's definitely a technical, what would you call that, leapfrogging, if you will, where we have to rebuild a lot of our tech stack to be able to manage this scale of data. But safe to say, it is a huge innovation that we are pretty excited about. And then beyond that, I mean, we're working a lot more towards not just charting. I mean, we continue to develop our charting capabilities. It's what we're known for. But we're trying to do a lot more for the average investor who maybe doesn't know much about charting. And that's to say, not everybody's going to start their journey by doing technical analysis. We know that for sure. And for some folks, we honestly understand that technical analysis may never be part of their journey for investing. However, we've capitalized on that audience as kind of our wedge, because that's where we're really most competitive, right? Even before TradingView, the founders built a company called Multicharts, and then they're actually the original architects of a company called eSignal, which is back in the 90s, was a desktop software. So safe to say they are legendary in the space in terms of building really advanced charting and data visualizations. But what they might not be expert in is areas of, say, fundamental analysis or event-based trading. So that's more, say, news flow or alternative data. different data sets that maybe people don't think of as actionable, but if you actually really dig in, they can be extremely compelling for, say, quarterly investing or long-term investing versus, say,
Yeah.
intraday investing. And so we're definitely trying to build a lot more around these kind of new work streams, knowing full well that some investors want to trade, biannually in some cases, right? So how can we
Mhm.
give them all the tools they need such that when they do, have that moment or they need to really dig into their portfolio, great. How can we provide you, as much service as you possibly might choose, such that you can make a more qualified decision in your investing? And so, yeah, that's a lot of what we're kind of gauging day to day, and continue to kind of push into that direction, knowing full well that, yeah, I mean, it's not our bread and butter. It's not our sweet spot, but we know full well that there's a lot more investors out there than there are technical analysts. And
Mhm.
so we continue to improve the product, but we definitely do think that we can do well to offer something to a bunch of different investor classes as well, such that, yeah, they can learn at their own pace, and maybe eventually they'll become technical analysts. But we definitely want to kind of build them a bridge so they can start their investing journey.
Mhm. Exciting. I mean, there's always something going on, and following this path and also watching from, from the user perspective, what is going on with TradingView. Once again, it's amazing. It's so exciting also to see how things develop and how you bring things together, not just from analysis side, and once again, also from community side and brokerage. So I'm very, very sure there's more to come. And I'm so excited really talking with you about this and looking to watch already. We're just coming to an end. So once again, Piers, I'm so grateful and honored that you really made the time in your tight schedule to give me and also the audience a bit more insights about yourself, TradingView, and business. So thank you very much, and see you and hear you next time.
Awesome. Thanks for the time, Wieland. And yeah, much congrats on the kind of growth of the organization, and hope to catch you in one of our global country endeavors, maybe India or abroad somewhere.
That's already it, and I really hope that you enjoyed this episode and you took away some learnings for your personal trading. If you want to learn more about me, about my interview partners, if you want to have a one-on-one coaching or even get into a training course with me or my interview partners, just get into the show notes and follow one of all these links you find there, and then I will be happy to hear and see you again. Your Wieland Arlt.